When I was a kid, my dad would take me to the video store on Friday nights and go into the back room where only adults were allowed. He would watch pornography. The term je mint condition means like nuge, because that's the condition coins are in when they leave the mint. Probably around the age of 11 or 12, I realized that the order of appearance at the end of a movie's end credits is not the order of who looks the best. I learned a few years ago that I'm actually the bearer of bad news, not the mayor of bad news.
I'm 25.
Cilantro and coriander are the same plant. One day at a restaurant, my friend and I were eating a dish of chips and I remarked that the salsa had a very strong coriander flavor, and she replied that she couldn't smell anything but coriander. We discussed the matter for several minutes, unable to believe that the other person perceived a completely different flavor and couldn't detect the one she thought was pronounced. A few weeks later, I saw coriander seeds in the store and bought a few to test the flavor she was talking about. And I found out the truth. At least you guys weren't arguing about whether the saucers tasted like soap or not. No doubt it could have been worse. I realized today that walking the planks on a ship was not something pirates added to their boats as a means of public execution. It was like a small wooden diving board. In fact, they are exactly the same as the boards used to get on and off the boat. It is not the presence of the boards that is threatening, but the lack of darkness. Until recently, I also thought that, despite the obvious name Je kill hold I would just be thrown out of the boat and left behind. I never imagined that I would be tied with fishing line, dropped and dragged under the keel of the boat. To alla storms 4-mile keel. For posterity, for the gruesome information about it. There are always barnacles and small shells with sharp edges in the bottom of the boat. Campbell's soup must have a can of water in it. Apparently, I've been drinking condensed milk soup as it is. Don't let people fool you. You have to eat it straight from the can. When I first visited the US, I was alone in New York City. I thought you guys were very strict about paying proper attention to visiting museums, because in the UK, we call a stroller a baby carriage. I was actually pretending to be more interested than I actually was, so as not to seem like a bad guy out for a casual stroll. Around the third day, I saw a sign that said no strollers allowed. The first time I was in the US, I went to the supermarket alone and the woman at the checkout asked me if I wanted paper or plastic. She was actually asking what bag I was putting my purchases in, not how I was going to pay. This is a perfectly reasonable misunderstanding. I'm British, and I was supposed to be a door-to-door salesperson for an American MLM company. I was confused because I was neither a lawyer nor a tenant. I thought I would be fine. Fortunately, the local police took half a day to explain everything to me. While you're on the subject, for years after watching the movie, The Conveyance, I thought Rentboy was a cute Scottish folk nickname for a guy named Renton. I first looked him up after reading the book, because he said he was offended by the title. It's a word you definitely won't hear in the US. Calling someone simple is just a good way to call someone stupid. My wife taught me this after my grandmother called me simple for 28 years. Simple can mean uncomplicated or cunning. Not naive, just simple, because when I was 26 years old, I realized narwhals existed, in an episode of the Octonauts. I walked into the room and said, "Aren't there only real animals on this show? Shh." And I answered. Then the kid's father said, Are you kidding me? Shh. I said. I kept seeing the same Chinese characters on restaurant signs and always wanted to know what they meant. A week ago, I found out it meant restaurant. I always poured water into the cup of the coffee maker. It was especially tedious to pour as many cups of water into the reservoir as I could. I recently realized that I was allergic to carrots. I just thought carrots made everyone's mouth go numb. So do almonds. I recently discovered that I am allergic to almonds. Similarly, I thought raw almonds were unpalatable because they caused a weird tingling sensation in my mouth. I only found out about my nut allergy when the tingling suddenly turned into anaphylaxis, and I ended up in the hospital after eating chocolate and nuts. Similarly, my husband asked me why carrots make my tongue rough. I am 35 years old. I always thought I couldn't eat cake. Why can't I eat cake? It's my own cake. No one ever told me I couldn't eat cake. I realize that the fact that I am not allowed to eat cake means that I can't eat cake without leaving it behind. Once you eat it, it's gone. This idiom I only realized this year.
I'm 27.
In Italian, you can't have a wife who's had a full bottle or something. The solution is to eat half the cake. As ridiculous as it sounds, I recently came across the term knee-jerk reaction, j. I always thought it just sounded like that, and wrote it as a psychological term, like knee-jerk reaction to drinking j. English is not my first language, so I was dumbfounded when I noticed the difference in pronunciation between ye, keys, ye, kiss, he's this, these, etc. I only realized it when I told my boyfriend I wanted ye keys, and he looked very confused. Laughter. Now I try my hardest to pronounce them correctly. Imagine if you ever made that mistake when ordering beans. I thought pay-per-view was pay-per-view. My boyfriend didn't know that electric toothbrushes have timers that go off after 1 and 2 minutes. He thought the timer was broken, returned it and bought a new one, since the timer only shortens the vibration time. He would say, what the hell, I literally just charged my toothbrush. What the heck, I literally just charged this magnificent thing, and you thought the batteries were running low. I don't remember exactly what the conversation was about one day. I mentioned that I love the way my toothbrush lets me know I've brushed my teeth enough, and it was like a light bulb went off in his head, and it suddenly came to him that the toothbrush had been doing it all along. The big steering wheel I used to spin as a kid wasn't actually the one that steered the cruise ship. It brought back memories of when I was about 13 years old. I was flying on an airplane with a group of other kids. I fell asleep during the flight, but turbulence woke me up. A few kids who were nearby saw me flinch and said exaggeratedly loudly, wow, I can't believe the pilot did a barrel roll. I told a few other people about it, but it wasn't until I became an awkward adult that I realized some people were just teasing me. I mean, no commercial airplane pilot would ever do that to passengers, but amazingly enough, I have used a passenger airplane in demonstration flights for industry professionals. Boeing test pilot Tex Johnston was demonstrating the Boeing 707. Essentially, his job was to convince people to invest in this airplane. He was supposed to perform a simple overflight, but did a barrel roll. When his boss incredulously asked what he was doing, he apparently replied, "As selling airplanes is easy. Being in a suit on your birthday means you're not wearing any clothes." For a long time I thought it meant a certain outfit that I put on every year on my birthday. What happens when the birthday suit stops fitting you? Laughs, I get stretch marks. It wasn't until I was 28 that I realized the EY is 6 afraid of 7E joke. I thought 7, 8, 9 was lame, like I was counting. The electric bill ended up being paid only late in life. I didn't realize that time flew like an arrow. It wasn't until I went to university that I got the absurd idea that fruit could fly like bananas. That's because 7 of us were registered sex offenders. Wow, thanks for the silverware. For a long time, I thought prima donna was prima donna. Me too, I thought it meant being a frog in a well because that's what my mom called me. Was there such a thing in this thread? I thought it was E prima donna E2. The principle of Saved by the Bell is named belding. There are two of them in the same building, and one of them is bald. Best line in the show, if you ask me, when I was younger. The cord on the vacuum cleaner spins so that you can remove the whole cord at once, rather than untangling it one loop at a time like I've done all my life. If you wind it in a figure 8 between the two hooks, then when you remove the whole cord hooks down when you vacuum. The cord will not get tangled. Parents should let their kids write letters to Santa and think about what they want to buy them for Christmas. I can't believe I haven't thought of this in my 32 years of living in this world. I just thought it was a fun little tradition. In Sweden, we put this letter in the mailbox with the mail going to the North Pole. In Canada, we also send letters to Santa Claus at the North Pole H0H0H0. My bedroom door broke, and I finally got it fixed. The knob was pressed against the door, so I figured it was broken. When I was little, around age 4, my family told me that the door to the restroom in my grandparents' house was unlocked. My family didn't want me to lock the door, because I was known for accidentally locking it. I was, I think, 18 years old when I accidentally locked myself that way and walked out of the bathroom, when I realized how it worked. No one even remembered lying to me about the door not being locked. It's been a few years since I realized it, but I think that's a good name for it. What the hell, I just watched it and I still can't believe it. The villain of Halloween is not Michael Myers. It would be more interesting if he was. This piggy didn't go shopping at the market. Wait, then why are the other pigs eating roast beef? I have a feeling at least one of those pigs has an agenda, man. Pigs will eat anything. For a long time, I thought that slaughtering them meant kicking them in the balls or punching them in the face. So whenever I was worried, angry, or talking about a certain person, I would say, "Yeah, I'm going to bust his beautiful balls." No one said anything, but my friends always laughed afterward, so they thought I was exaggerating. Years later, a coworker told me about a rude man he met. He stopped and said, "Do you know what that means?" I replied. Needless to say, I was extremely embarrassed and horrified when he explained it to me. To put it mildly, very embarrassing, but when I was at university, I used to order Roman Coke a lot. Turns out it's just Roman Coke. Rum and cola are mixed in equal proportions, poured over ice and served. When teenagers say they ETPJ their houses, I always assumed it was ETP. Recently I realized that ETP is an acronym for toilet paper. I am 27 years old. A girl I know has a dog named EG, and after knowing her for 2 years and being with Deji, I was having a conversation with her sister-in-law and said, "I like the name DJ." She started laughing and said, "Je know, DOG." I still remember this to this day. We got a chocolate Labrador a few years ago, and my dad is known for naming his dogs after animal breeds. This time, my mother wouldn't allow me to name my doggy dog, so I named her Kitty. I also named my horse No Name. So I don't let her name my animals anymore. I know someone who named his dog ESBT-E-Spot. There is a sticker on a height gauge next to the door of a gas station. I always thought these stickers were meant to be enjoyed on the drive-in. More importantly, it is not accurate when you actually stand up and measure. They are supposed to correct the angle of the camera and set it up so that the person's height is correctly reflected. Oops, a whole new dimension. Half the fish breathe water, not air. Oh yes, I saw a fish pulled out of the ocean and drained of air and spit out water. I was shocked to my core. Everyone else was like, "Oh, yeah." Not just now, but I think it applies. I'm in my mid-30s now. I didn't realize until I was about 28 that my mother's name was Betty and my sister's name was Wilma. They were Betty and Wilma from the Flintstones. 2 years later, my Aunt Wilmer told me they were fraternal twins. Again, something I had not known for 30 years. When I was a little girl, I had an Australian shepherd named Sydney. I did not know why her name was Sydney until 18 years later. I named my American Eskimo Juno. So you have an Eskimo. When I recently moved nearby, I saw a place marked public house. That's when I realized, that's why they call them bugs. In Russian, it stands for public house. Public house does not mean a pub, it means a whorehouse. I wonder. And motel is motor hotels. Until last year, I thought Nat Geo was a person. Then I realized it stood for National Geographic. Nathaniel Giotopoulos is actually the founder of this channel, but that's just a coincidence. Not me, but about 2.5 months ago, my sister was watching a John Wick 3 when she asked me during the desert scene, what is this? She asked me if I knew what I was talking about, and I replied, the land of sand. I laughed hysterically and said, you mean the desert? I said, yes, deserts are real. I'm thinking about that now, and it made me laugh. I think we should start a petition to change this word to just Sandland. It's a nice word, though. My tornado sounds like a train. I don't mean that tornadoes make a choo-choo sound. I thought astigmatism was astigmatism because I thought there were two astigmatisms. I confused astigmatism with both stigma and stigmata. Today my friend realized that pipe cleaners were originally intended to clean pipes. After I suggested that since metal straws resemble pipes, why not use them to clean them? Oh, I used them about 7 years ago when my stone array was trying to clean glass pipes. Mom, I feel stupid. Someone needs to invent a riff on pipe cleaner points. Oh. Those people who always seem to know which way is north, south, east, and west are not magic magnets, they just notice where the sun is in the sky. Why didn't anyone tell us that the sun is a huge indicator? But I know many people who know the direction without the sun and without thinking. I am not one of them. I am late in informing you all, but it occurred to me the other day that the game is called The Sims because I am in a simulation. I am 26 years old. That tire rotation means moving a tire to another part of the car, not spinning the wheel. I learned that allspice is actually one spice, not a blend of spices that includes cinnamon and nutmeg. Edit, let me rephrase. I don't think cinnamon and nutmeg are a blend. I also learned that from your comment. The house in Bikini Bottom is a karma flower. Patrick is dumb and lives under a rock, so he doesn't know any better. Bikini Bottom is named after a nuclear bomb test site. Bikini is also named after Bikini Atoll, a radioactive site. Commercials for personal injury lawyers run frequently on daytime television. Pokemon have a same type attack bonus, which means that if a Pokemon uses a move of the same type as the Pokemon itself, the damage of that move is increased by 1.5 times. This is also called stabby damage, but I thought it was just a colloquial 1.5x damage. I now realize that stab stands for the same type attack bonus. My mother used to make fried eggs with my sisters for dinner. I was 27 years old when I realized it was actually tortellini. My mother knew we were kids and rejected anything with a strange name, even if it tasted good. I think I would have been more jittery about eating a cooked belly button. Cruller de Vil was a cruel devil. The Spanish word for explorer is explorer. Dora, Spanish plain language Dora Explorer. Who is that super cool explorer Dora? When I was a kid, my mother told me that Rosie the rabbit went to live on a farm, and when I was in my early 20s, I saw an episode of The Sopranos where Tony realized that his dog didn't really live on a farm, and everyone made fun of him. That's when I realized that Rosie didn't go to the farm either. Well, I once dated a girl who started telling me that her old dog had started living on a farm. I didn't say anything, but just by the look on my face, she remembered that for the first time and said, "Yo." We had a good laugh about it, but it was pretty wild to realize it in real time. I told my ex about my pet turtle, and she reminded me that right after I mentioned it, the turtle ran away. It all became clear to me. Maybe it's comforting, but I lived on a farm as a kid and had 2 rabbits. One of my mother's friends got fed up with her kids having rabbits, so I got them. The rabbits lived a good life. I gave them scraps of vegetables my mother cut up and lots of ice in the summer. They didn't like to be petted, but they liked it when I read to them. They didn't like to be petted, but they liked it when I read to them. He was the cutest thing I had ever read. Oh my bunny was the same way. I had to give it away for some reason, but I didn't think anything of it. I knew he was supposed to be dead by now, but I didn't realize he was dead by then. I was in high school and was sick at home watching a terrible TV movie. The boy's dog had been destroyed and his parents said the dog was now living on the farm. So I thought, wait, did that happen to our parrot, too? And 10 years ago he was sent to a local parrot farm. Laughs. There's an episode of Friends, where they make fun of Ross for believing that the family dog went to the Ray Bonner farm. I watched that show with my new wife a few years ago. Ross and I noticed the same cruelty at the same time. Oh my gosh, Kai. Today on the radio Mariah Carey told me that she wrote and sang, "All I Want for Christmas Is You." All this time I thought it was a cover that she sang very well. It was more beloved than the original. Turns out it was the original. Underwear and socks are there to cover places where I sweat or stink, and to allow me to change underwear frequently without sweating or stinking up what I wear over them. However, men's undershirts are different and exist so that no one has to see my boobs when I wear a white dress shirt. Phineas and Ferb are shaped like the letters E, P, and E, F, E. Therefore, their heads are the letters E, P, and E, F, E in the show's logo. The song It's Getting Hot in Here isn't really about temperature. I find it very, very silly. Nelly was a groundbreaking climate activist. Alucard in Castlevania is Dracula backwards. In the movie Cats vs. Dogs, when the dog says mama's boy, he's actually saying bee's boy. Remember the blue-gray secret agent kitty with a Russian accent? That breed of cat is called the Russian Blue. The Houston Astros are named after an astronaut, and the Baltimore Ravens are named because Edgar Allan Poe lived and is buried in Baltimore. Don't forget that he died with him. Otherwise, it could be a plausible rumor. I'm 30 years old, and I realized a few months ago that howdy is a cowboy expression meaning good afternoon. Buckaroos equals vacuro Cahoots equals cohorts Moose equals varminus or vamos Hossegow equals simply jgatoji. Critter equals creature Varmint equals parasite this man is Spanish. Tenure means tenure for 10 years. Jen, I thought a teacher would get some sort of tenure if he worked for 10 years. When I was 16 years old, I realized that reindeer were real. I thought reindeer were fake, like elves and Santa Claus. It was really stupid, but I didn't realize they were gay until I was 14, and I heard my mom jokingly tell my grandmother, "Yeah, I'm gay." I knew that lesbian, same-sex, and /gay were relatively interchangeable terms, but it didn't cause me any doubt because my mothers were lesbians, which is another name for gay, and up until that point they were gay. I have a lesbian mom, but I didn't know the term lesbian until I was in 6th grade. I had a huge fight with my best friend because she said my mom was a lesbian, and I didn't know what that was and thought it was an insult. No, if your mom has a girlfriend, she's probably a lesbian. I'm turning 25 next week, and I'm still thinking about it. Maybe she just learned this language herself and is trying it out. I was teaching a sex education class for kids this age, and in the anonymous question section that one of the kids asked, every time the answer to the anonymous question from the previous class was in the form of "Are you a lesbian?" It was in the form of a question to me. Yes, anonymous 12-year-old, I am a lesbian. Grammar is called that because the prize is a gramophone. Now it all makes sense. Ecuador is named after the equator. Yes, it's literally the equator, but it's Spanish. A friend of mine, at the age of 22, only learned last year that dolphins must swim and live in water to survive. He thought dolphins were land mammals, but they actually like to swim. Mitchell and Jello's David is the David of David and Goliath. I don't know how I didn't realize that. I thought they were equally named Dave. I'm 37 years old, and it wasn't until a few years ago that I realized that the David from David and Goliath is the same David as King David in the Bible. Obviously, I didn't grow up in the church. Honestly, I forgot for a moment when I read this. Oh, so there was another biblical David who looked like King Dabo. Wait a minute. That was a few years ago, but I realized it too late. You're supposed to towel off after a shower. I would just wrap the towel around me and sit in it or walk around in it. The last time this question was asked, someone didn't realize that you have to wait for the water to warm up before taking a shower. He didn't like that the shower always started with cold water. I am 16 years old, and a month ago I didn't know that I didn't have to draw all the hot water from the sink. When I was washing my hands, the water was splashing in all directions, and when I complained to my friend, he said, "You turn the knob halfway." After that, my life went uphill. Let me tell you, friends, that's the kind of husband I have. He wears his clothes wet. Why? My EID vote symbolizes a pat on the head. I've lived in a Chicago neighborhood called Greektown for 8 years, and had no idea that the blue and white Christmas lights were the colors of their flag. Today I realized that the division symbol is an empty fraction with dots replacing the numerator and denominator. Similarly, I did not immediately realize that rational numbers can be expressed as ratios of integers. It didn't cause me any doubt because I had never received such an explanation from my math teacher. I just thought, wow, that's a weird way of explaining numbers. But gosh, after all these years, it hit me. That's the thing. Everything I've read here. I'm an elementary school teacher. Score, thank you, luckily I don't teach math. And percentages, either. Not me, but my husband realized that the letter JQE is pronounced EQ, not EQ. It blew his mind. I have to remind him that EKE is pronounced EQ, not EQ. So I was surprised twice. Key is pronounced JK, not JK. Slap. Heck, Q 5-letter words. The last 4 are unnecessary. They're all just waiting their turn. Jessica Rabbit took the last name Roger Abbott, not Rabbit. I learned why Mary-Kate and Ashley are called the Olsen twins. why TV commercials only show 2 at a time, and why Mary-Kate doesn't look like a rabbit in her 16 years. It wasn't until recently, after watching the movie, that I realized they are officially married. Super obvious. That alcohol doesn't freeze in a regular freezer. Eater, I meant alcoholic beverages, not beer or wine. I knew this, but my fool still tried to make frozen alcoholic pop, mixed it with ice and fruit and put it in the freezer. This was to get the plastic pieces of deodorant out. God, I've been doing this for years. OMG, I'm so dumb. The lead singer of Blur is the lead singer of Gorillaz. I realize it's the other way around. I was a Gorillaz fan before I was a Blur fan. One day I heard "E Coffee" and TV'd, and I thought, hey, that sounds like a Gorillaz song. From that day on, I became a Blur fan. You.